Hello, it's Randi Rhodes. Here's a clip from our show, and go to randirhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.
Mary had a little man. The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream.
Change has come to America.
Believe it. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
The goal for both of them, the goal for the United States, is twofold. As I've stated, it's one, to make sure that we destabilize Syria.
Just stop talking. Destabilize Syria. Hitler didn't use gas. Stop talking. Just stop talking. It's the most amazing administration in the history of the world. Okay, we welcome now the author of The Making of Donald Trump, which is, an amazing biography of Donald Trump that would, really inform you about how far back with the Russians Donald Trump goes. But beyond that, David Cay Johnston is a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist who is trying to make a new platform for all Americans to get information about what is going on in Congress before it becomes something that you say, oh, I wish I would have known that. And I saw what he was trying to do, and I asked him to please come on the show and talk about it. So welcome, David Cay Johnston. How are you?
Well, I'm terrific, and thank you for mentioning DC Report, singular, DCReport.org.
You're welcome. This is a big undertaking that you're trying to do. It's a $3 million budget you're trying to get to, so that you can hire the kind of journalists that, people can rely on instead of all this crap that goes out there. I mean, there's so much stuff, and the algorithm, your IT person is going to be probably one of the biggest expenses, because what happens now is these fake news sites like InfoWars and Breitbart and all they understand the internet so well, David, that the algorithms, I used to be able to say to somebody, just Google it. You can't say that anymore. Because,
nope.
Right, because the top 5 or 10 results will be fake news.
Right. Well, we have been running this website for about 3 months now, and we've spent a total of only $25,000. And you're right, about 50% of that has gone for all the technical services, the web design, things like that. Yeah. I've got journalists working for me for little tiny honoraria. I mean, they're just token checks. They're essentially volunteers. I'm not getting paid. But let me tell you a couple of things we've done. So that Donald Trump says he was offended so strongly by the poisoning of children in Syria that he sent off 59 Tomahawk missiles that cost about $500,000 each. Well, at the same time, his EPA administrator, Scott Pruitt, approved the sale of a new chemical that poisons American children and makes them dumb if they get exposure to it because they live on or near a farm. So, while it's bad to poison Syrian children with the Trump administration, it's okay to poison American children. That's one of the kinds of things we've pointed out. And what we do at DC Report, and we've broken a whole number of stories since we launched at the end of January, is every day we look at the Federal Register, which is the official rule book of the government, and the Congressional Record. And if something's being reported on widely, we don't pay attention to that. Everybody knows that. Mm-hmm. We report on the things that affect your pocketbook, your job, your children, your safety on the job. Without any announcement, the Trump administration stopped announcing when they penalize companies when workers are killed on the job. Now, the penalties are nothing. They're a few $1,000s. It was shaming the companies through public announcements that helped improve worker safety. And we have far fewer worker deaths today.
Now we have to police customer safety.
Yes.
We're getting beaten on the airplane, and we still can't get a carry-on bag.
Right. But nobody. But here's the thing, Randy. Nobody else has reported on things we've reported on, like how Trump has set up the system now to allow companies to artificially inflate electricity prices. Gave Wall Street a clear signal: go rip off consumers. the plan to give away federal lands. The federal government, sells and buys land all the time, but to give it away without regard to its value, either as a producer of income or as an asset, is nutty.
It's not only nutty. I've explained this, in just in passing, really, to the audience, telling them that we get royalties when there's land leases and they're drilling or they're getting something of value. And Trump just said, "Oh no, screw the American people. They don't need their royalties. Just go take what you want." Right. Now, what kind of an America First agenda is that?
Well, it's a Trump First agenda. Remember what one of Donald Trump's con was he persuaded many people who have not seen raises in years, and I'm the guy who's written the books documenting how the 90% have been screwed by the government. What he said is, I'm your savior, and yet in his initial announcement and on the campaign trail, he kept saying the problem is wages are too high. Now, how are you better off if the Trump administration's declared goal is to lower your wages?
I played that clip over and over. It's just 2 seconds, and it was probably the most important thing he ever said, as far as the really hurting people in our society. And he kept saying, "I'm sorry to say, wages are too." He said it on CNBC. They were asking him what is an acceptable debt to what was the ratio they were asking him about, debt to spending ratio.
Right. And
he said, "Well, I don't know. I'll let you know, but all I could say is wages are too high. I'm sorry to say."
And now something happened this week. My column today at Investopedia, and it'll be up soon at the Daily Beast, is two economists, one from the University of Chicago, where I studied economics, and one, I'm just a journalist, though, I'm not an economist. But one from the University of Chicago and one from the University of Minnesota have gone into the same data that I analyze every year, and they have now shown in a very high-level paper that what I've said for years is exactly correct. It's not the 1%. It's the 1% of the 1%. So if you think of all the income people earn in America as a pie and how is it sliced up, the only group whose slice of the pie is growing, which means everybody else is getting smaller, is the 1% of the 1%, the best off 12,000 households in America, which, by the way, happens to include Donald Trump. Their incomes are just going crazy through the top, and the bottom half are losing income, or they were until 4 years ago, and the people, even at the edge of the 99%, their incomes have basically grown in tandem with the economy on a historical plane. It's this 1% of the 1%, and that, you know who that group is? That's the political donor class.
Yes.
They're the ones who decide who you get to vote for because they fund the races for Congress, and they are picking people in both parties who take care of them.
Well, one just has to look at the Mercer family and how Steve Bannon was, made the last person to whisper in Donald Trump's ear before we actually launched 59 Tomahawk missiles. It's very sad. It's very sick. We have become a kleptocracy. We've passed oligarchy now, and they're stealing. One of the easiest things to understand is, when they say we don't need our royalties anymore for our, allowing the use of federal lands. There was money given to the Treasury on our behalf in royalties, and he said, "Oh, you don't need to pay that anymore."
But you know about that, Randy, and your audience knows about it because we reported it in DC Report. It hasn't been in the New York Times. It hasn't been in the Wall Street Journal. It hasn't been in the Washington Post. There have been a little bit of mention of some protests the Associated Press has written about, but we are constantly breaking stories. And one of the things wrong with journalism in America, and I've been doing this for more than a half century now,
6 books.
Is that reporters get rewarded for covering the sizzle, what the politicians say. What we do at DC Report is cover what they do. The proposed rules, the proposed laws, and then we empower people by saying, well, here's a rulemaking proceeding that will affect you, and if you cut and paste, this into the subject line, and you send it to this email address, and you use these magic words at the beginning of your email, the government has to formally accept your petition. The Federal Communications Commission is about to kill the whole copper wire telephone system around the country, the only one that works when there's big, terrible storms and floods and things like that. and take away all the protections you have, so that if you are a customer and have one of these VoIP phones, that's what I'm talking over the internet, and it goes out, well, under current law, the state you live in, the state probably has rules. They have to come and fix your phone line within 24 hours or 48 hours or maybe a week. But under the new system, they don't even have to let you have a telephone.
Well, check this out. I mean, this whole internet privacy thing is something that I think that, young voters need to be, they really need to understand what's going on here, because they've never had a world that didn't have internet. But they don't understand that, they couldn't decide should the FCC or the FTC regulate. And so they said, hey, nobody will. Right now, it's a free-for-all. They can sell all your browsing information.
But remember, the key thing here is, this isn't selling the statistical information.
No, it's not the metadata.
So many thousand people went to this website.
Right.
This is selling Randi Rhodes looked up, handsome men to have an affair with.
That's kind of the example I'm trying to express to people. I told them this. I said, what if mom and dad are getting a divorce, and mom's got a nasty little porn habit, and it's a little off the beaten path, Yeah. And so dad's...
Or here's another one.
Wait, check this out. So dad's lawyer can now purchase my browsing information and introduce it in court and say, I'm an unfit mother. Exactly correct. And there are other things. I mean, imagine, for example, that some relative of yours says, I just got diagnosed with some terrible disease. Yes.
So you go start searching to learn about that because you care about your sister, brother, mother, uncle, whoever it is. Mm-hmm. You're suddenly, once they're free to sell this stuff, you're going to be bombarded with ads saying, buy this medicine or go to this hospital, when, in fact, you were researching something having to do with a relative or someone else. I mean, this is
but it's even worse. It's even worse.
Here's what's happening. The Trump administration is an administration of, by, and for corporate America, and of, by, and for the most predacious, the most predatory of the billionaire class. And everything they're doing is contrary to the interests of working people. I can't point to a single policy that Trump has proposed so far that benefits working people, but we've written about a number of policies at dcreport.org and in my columns where we've shown he's doing things inimical to your interests.
Yeah, there's no question about. I mean, what if I'm researching for a friend or whatever, or I'm concerned about myself, and now all of a sudden my health insurance company can purchase my browsing information, and my premiums suddenly go up because he undoes pre-existing conditions or community ratings, and all of a sudden I have to pay 5 times more than somebody else who didn't look that stuff
up. But here's the other problem. Because you mentioned this about how search engines are not reliable now on these things, I get emails every day from people who say to me, why are you attacking Donald Trump? We finally have a fine Christian man, a family man in the White House. And it's like, what planet are you living on? Well, if you go to the websites many of these people go to, you would believe that malarkey, even though it's complete nonsense.
Not a chance. But I will say this: they're talking now about this tax plan. Trump is he's trashed his tax plan, whatever the hell it was. I think his worked out to 50% of the goods went to the top 1%, but it cost $7 trillion, and so
that's the low estimate. You're being really kind to him. The potential cost could be $12 or $13 trillion over 10 years.
And then there was Ryan's plan that gave, I think, 98.6% of the good stuff to the top 1%. But that only cost $3 trillion. So now they're talking about repealing, just to make it look as if they're doing something for the working Joe. They're going to repeal the Social Security tax, which is actually money I pay into my own retirement income. Okay.
Yeah, and there's a simple way to fix Social Security.
Yeah, go ahead.
And the way to you hear these enormous numbers, how huge they are, but in fact, that's a number that goes out 75 years into the future. Now, think what America was like 75 years ago.
Right.
75 years ago, we were in World War II. This was the year we had the Battle of Midway. I think it was in 42. It may have been 43. There's no comparison between the America then and in the future, and you're not going to be able to project that. If you want to have a healthy Social Security system in the future, first of all, under Reagan, 90% of wages were taxed. Now it's down to about 70%. The wage cap stops at around $120,000.
Right.
Well, why not put on a Social Security tax that starts again at $2 million and says everybody above $2 million is going to pay Social Security? I've run the numbers. It solves the problem all by itself.
You know, I've always been for that. I don't understand why. I mean, I used to make now I'm working for myself and I'm doing what you're doing. Okay, you don't pay yourself. You grow your business, and you know, I get that. But
not if you're Donald Trump. If you're Donald Trump, you suck all the cash you can out, destroy the business, and move on and start another one you can suck all the cash out of, and let it be destroyed.
And then when you can't borrow another nickel or steal another dime, you go to Russia, and they'll give you bank loans, or you go to Deutsche
Certainly
Bank.
with the case of Donald Trump, they've done a lot to help him out over the years, and that's why he's so sensitive. You know that this Saturday there are going to be marches in at least 42 states and several cities overseas.
Yep.
I'm the featured speaker at the San Francisco march, and at that march and some others, we're going to have the Trump chickens. Some of them have been flown home from China. To these inflatable chickens from 6 feet to 50 feet with Trumpian hair. And the theme is, Donald, you're chicken to show us your taxes.
All right, hang on to that thought. I got to take a quick break, and we'll come back, okay? And we can talk more to David Cay Johnston, who is doing DC Report. DC Report, are you an org or a com?
Well, we own .com, but .org.
.org. It is a not-for-profit serious journalistic site that is going to be written in nice, clear, plain language, and it will discuss things that are going on like tax reform and healthcare reform and foreign policy and poisoning of children with pesticides on certain before it's too late. Without really a partisan flavor, it is just going to look at the register, and it's just going to look at what's coming up in Congress with reports on things that you don't read practically anywhere else. And right now they're looking for funds. So go to dcreport.org and you will see a place where you can donate and get this thing up and running, because we are and big organizations out there that support the truth. He'll take your money too, but so will I. Go to RandiRhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.